Cyberland, coming back to you with another game review. And this time we're on to Luigi's Mansions 3. So, I had purchased this game for my kids at some point. And I remember while I was working on another game, my son was playing this one. And I always liked Luigi's Mansion because before Ghostbusters, the video game, came out, I always felt like Luigi's Mansion was the closest thing we were going to get at the time. So I always wanted to, at some point, play these games. And I never got around to one because it was on GameCube, but I wasn't playing GameCube anymore. And the second one came out on the Game Boy, and I was like, well, I'm not buying that. But then this one came out on the Switch. And, got it for the boys, and I was like, okay, at some point I'm going to play this game. I don't know when, but I'll play it. And then I would periodically see my kid playing and kind of watch how he was doing and overall. And I was just like, yeah, this looks like it's going to be a fun game. And then lo and behold, I started playing it. So with Luigi's Mansion, I can't speak on 1 and 2 because I haven't played them, but for 3, it's pretty much you and Mario and Toad and Toadstool, or Princess Toadstool. You guys supposed to be going on this getaway. And then all of a sudden, everybody disappears. Except you. And then you see King Boo's in here and this lady, I forget her name. But apparently everybody's been captured, and your goal is to go through the hotel and get everybody back. And lo and behold, while you're doing that, you come across this scientist, and he gives you like this vacuum pack to suck up ghosts and catch them and stuff. And through the game, you start getting little upgrades here and there that'll help you along the way. They're all necessary, so there's not a way to not have them. And that's overall the gist of the game. There's a lot of puzzles, and as you continue to progress, money is very easy to come by. So for anybody that's like, oh, I don't have enough money to buy this or buy that, I'm like, no, that means you're just not going through the game and searching for it. It's very easy to you go through every room you go through, you suck up everything and knock over everything, and you'll get money. There was not one point in this game where I was broke. And as far as being able to get through the game overall, it wasn't too bad. There were some puzzles that were a little confusing and took time for me to be able to get through them, but overall, it wasn't too bad. I would say even the boss fights kind of came off like a puzzle to an extent, like how to beat some of the bosses. Some of them were straightforward, but then some of them were like, oh, you gotta do this, then you gotta do this, and you gotta do this. Okay, and then you can do what you need to do. Because almost every boss fight, I believe, as soon as you beat the monster, you would suck up the ghost, and then the objective was to get to the top floor. Pretty much, you'd get a key, and little by little, you would get to the top floor. As far as music was cool. I mean, it wasn't anything memorable for me, but it fit the tone of the game. Overall, it was fine. As far as the difficulty, it wasn't too bad. I mean, of course, as you advance, it's got to be a little bit more challenging with any type of game. It shouldn't just totally be easier. But then also you get better, so then it makes you get better at capturing because of your motor skills and stuff. As far as the levels, the design, didn't have any issues with that. I felt it was definitely different from Mario Odyssey. It was more I guess, more controlled as opposed to allowing you to just venture off too much out of the game, out of what they required at the time where you were at. And what really helped with the game too was, having the dog bones. And, like I said, money was easy to come by. Controls weren't too bad. However, this is my biggest complaint with this game, was that for the majority of the game, you really didn't aim at anything, at any ghost or anything, any objects or anything to do what you need to do to get through. You didn't really aim at anything. You would just, suck up whatever you're doing, or you would do a flashlight or stuff like that to freeze the ghost or whatever, and do what you need to do to capture them. But unfortunately, at the end of the game, Nintendo really, to me, I felt, dropped the ball with that. And they required you to aim in order to beat the final boss, which I felt was, up until that point, didn't really spend any time practicing that ability. It was just you would turn your stuff and suck up the ghost, or suck up stuff in the level. It was never anything that was where it required you to aim to complete the level or beat the boss. So now all of a sudden, at the end of the game, you're required to do that, and it was very difficult. Very difficult. The hardest part of the game was the final boss, because what they had required you to do, which you had never had any practice, or that was never being placed on you throughout the game up until that point, to me, which I felt was just that just made, how some people be like, oh, I like a challenge. It wasn't a situation where, oh, I will enjoy a challenge. It was more like, this is irritating at this point. This is causing me not to like this game as much anymore. What the fuck were you guys thinking when you did this shit? You could have done something differently. Or if you knew that it almost felt like everything was planned for the game, like how they wanted you to progress and stuff. Everything had it had a dynamic of what they were going to do. But when they got to the final boss, they were just like, okay, how are we going to do? It's almost like they didn't have a plan in regards to how to deal with the final boss. They just, just threw it out there and hoped that it stuck, or hoped that it worked, and it didn't. And I really thought it was just me, like, okay, maybe I'm lacking in skill, but then I come to find out a bunch of people had the same problem. And, and then, of course I did beat the final boss, but it was not easy, and it took a while to complete it. The other thing too was that I didn't complete finding all the gems, and I figured I would have time later to go back and do that. But note to anybody listening to this review, if you get to the top floor, they're going to tell you, hey, once you do this, that's it. And what that means is, if once you beat the game, you can't backtrack or anything. That's it. If you want to go back and look for stuff that you missed, you have to completely start a new game. And I was like, fuck that, I'm not doing that. Because I was at the point where I've played this game enough. I did pretty much everything I wanted to do. It's time to move on. So, as far as difficulty, it's not a hard game. It's just the ending, the final boss was just... It just comes off like everybody else was planned accordingly, and this one wasn't. So that kind of made the game a little bit not more difficult, just rather irritating and unnecessary. Felt it was an unnecessary situation. Um, Gameplay was good. No complaints there for the most part. Graphics, it's a Switch game. I mean, it's the attention to detail was really good too. As far as my rating for the game, I would give it. Shoot, I'm thinking. I would give it a 7.5 out of 10. And the only reason why I knocked it down from an 8 was because of the final boss. It was just... I understand I'm going to get killed fighting bosses or even playing in the game. But it's one thing to where, okay, I'm getting killed because I'm getting hit, I'm not doing this and doing that. Whereas I'm getting killed because I'm being expected now to aim something at the boss, and I never had to do that before. There was nothing in the game where you had to aim up until that point. That it just made it to where it was unbearable, and it was mildly very frustrating to the point where I was almost like, man, I'm about to quit this shit. I'm tired of this. This is just like, this has gotten ridiculous. And it really did. So yeah, I give it a 7.5 really because of that. I mean, the story was cool. I'm kind of curious too, like, who were the bosses? Who did you fight for the Luigi's Mansion 1 and 2? I'm kind of curious about that. So as far, would I say if you played 1 and 2, definitely check out 3. It's worth, it's fun. It's just a fun game. It's not, it's not like Mario Odyssey, but it's still a fun game. It's just something different. And than me being a huge Ghostbusters fan, it's got that Ghostbusters vibe to it too. Replay value, I would say, if you don't go to the final stairs part of the game, where you go to the top of the hotel, you could have a good amount of time having fun trying to find the gems for each level and stuff. I mean, it's not like I don't think you get anything special, but it's just to say, hey, I did it, and it's like, okay. As far as the weapon upgrades and stuff too, it's the same thing. It's not hard to upgrade your equipment. It's not hard to have extra lives in the game, because you will need it. Every time you can, get as many dog bones as possible, because they will, you're gonna get killed, and instead of having to start completely over, the dog bone will allow you to get back up off the ground after you've been taken out. But yeah, overall, I was very happy with the result of the game outside of the final boss situation. I can't say I disliked anything else about the game. Yeah, I guess that's it for the most part. So that being said, I will catch you guys on the next one. Take care.